Dave, have you been watching anything this week?
Me and Kenny have watched a couple of things that he's posted about.
Oh, okay.
We watched Hijack with Idris Elba.
Oh, we mentioned that last week.
Yeah, Apple TV show. What's really odd though, it's 7 episodes.
Sure, I thought it was a film.
No, it's a series.
Oh, okay.
But it's weird how it's 7.
A bit random.
It is a bit random. What's really good in that is Neil Maskell. He was in like Kill List, the Ben Wheatley film. He's a British actor and he's brilliant in it.
Okay.
Definitely worth watching. Me and Kenny like that. I watched Elemental, the new Pixar one.
Oh, okay.
There's a link to one of our episodes because Wendy McClellan-Covey
from Bridesmaids
is one of the voices in it, and I'm up to season 4 on Cheers.
Oh, wait, you're motoring through that.
The sad thing is though, the last episode I watched, it's Woody turning up and Sam has to tell him that Coach has died. That's the first time it's mentioned in the series.
Because he passed away midway through was it the third series or something?
He's not in the last couple of the third series, yeah. So that was quite sad.
Yeah, no, I remember that now.
You watching anything?
Randomly, Jackie's got me hooked on this really melodramatic series on Netflix called Virgin River. It's from all accounts, it's quite a famous novel series in America. I can't remember the lady who wrote them all. I think there's quite a few. Basically, this nurse practitioner leaves LA and moves up into this small town, California forest.
Is anyone in it that we know?
No, not really. Right. There's hardly anyone. Like the main girl, I recognise she was in the one we like. I keep making you want to watch. I can't remember what it's called. Not This Life.
This Is Us.
This Is Us. Yes, that's it. She's got a brief part in that, but apart from that, but it's dead like just relaxed, and I'll be honest with you, I pretty much predict everything that ever happens in it as well. It's like, this is going to be, oh, like already we found out she had a stillborn baby. Both her parents died when she was a kid, and she was responsible for the death of her husband. And we're only one series in. Do you know, this all happened before.
Don't need to watch it.
I know, but it's the way it's sort of...
It's sort of predictable,
It's a little bit melodramatic, but it's just nice. I mean, just sit there and you, like... And plus, Jackie can go on Instagram at the same time. She's just like... I don't know how she does it. And I'm still getting through Modern Family.
What are you up to? About halfway or beyond now?
You know, I'm still in the same thing. I haven't watched many... I haven't actually watched much this week, if I'm honest.
Have you been out? Did you go on the weekend?
Done nothing, mate. Literally nothing. Married, aren't I? Too old for this shit.
Hello and welcome to Watch It If You Can. My name is Dave.
My name is Liam.
This podcast is all about box sets we've created of our favourite films and TV shows. Some you've seen, some you haven't, and others you may never want to watch. However, we can say, if you've never seen Shrinking, boop. All we want to do is chat on about these films and TV shows we love so dearly, and maybe, just maybe, you should watch it if you can. Liam.
Dave.
You alright?
I'm alright.
I'm excited for this one.
Are you?
Yeah. Obviously I know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the question anyway. What is it?
Well, it's the theme I picked this week is 80s blockbuster. And it's about as 80s blockbuster as you could get. It's Lethal Weapon.
Yes.
So can I just say, I put a little poll out on, it's not Twitter, it's X now, isn't it?
It's Twitter, isn't it?
Still true. It's like Snickers and Marathon all over again, isn't it? But I put a little poll, I would say, which best Lethal Weapon film ever. And Lethal Weapon won, hands down. I had 2 votes in total.
One was me. The other one was probably Kenny.
Yeah, I had 2 votes in total, and both were for Lethal Weapon. So I'm going to let the people speak.
Yeah, it's. I agree with that. I think the first one is still by far one of the most
So what is it?
tentpole movies, isn't it?
Lethal Weapon is a 1987 buddy cop film penned by the then 22-year-old Shane Black, while directed by renowned 80s director Richard Donner. It went on to be a successful franchise, but the first movie generally centred around the blossoming relationship between Riggs and Murtaugh.
So this box set is all about themes.
Yes.
We've got themes like films you haven't seen, films I haven't seen. We've got animated coming up. This one, as you say, is all about 80s action. So why this one in particular? Of all the ones you could have chose.
This is so 80s, Dave. I could smell the VHS head cleaner fluid as I watched it. This film transports me back to the 80s. You've got, even when the title credits came up, the look of the logos and stuff, it was so 80s.
What did you watch it on?
Not DVD or nothing.
Because when I watched it on, I dug out
the DVD. You got the original DVD. No, I got downloaded.
I would have had the VHS, but to be honest, I got rid of my VHS tapes ages ago and I haven't even got a recorder. So when you mentioned you were doing this, I was like, I've definitely got the DVD somewhere, because my DVDs are just in a big box and I've got all 4 DVD, but it's still quite grainy in it, the titles and stuff.
It's gorgeous. Do you know what? I wasn't 100% sure, but I'm sure I may have borrowed this off you when we were really young. I've got it.
Probably.
There's something in the back of my memory. I don't know if either you had a poster or a bin member being in your bedroom in your mum and dad's house, and something about, I might have borrowed it, a VHS copy once or something. There's when you just something in the back of the memory, it's a while back now, shall we say. When you thinking what an 80s blockbuster is, this hits all them boxes. Do you know what I mean? You've got cops, you've got baddies, you've got revenge, and it's almost like all the cliches of a buddy cop movie came from this film, this point onwards. I know there was ones before and that, but I think if you think about now what a buddy cop movie is, all the cliches, it's Lethal Weapon. This is so the beginning of what we came to think as a buddy cop movie.
No, it's a great choice. So who's in it that we know? What else have they been in?
Right, so first of all, Riggs is played by Mel Gibson. What do we say about Mel Gibson? There's the side that he's got such a body of work, and we can't deny there was the slight off-screen issues that he had. I think
which we've come across with a few actors, haven't we?
Yeah.
You can't totally ignore it. There's a lot.
No, I'm not going to.
There's a lot of issues behind the scenes with Mel, isn't he? But on the screen,
oh my god,
he's your man, isn't he?
First of all, he got his big break in the Sullivans. Do you remember it used to be on ITV, Australian?
I used to watch that with my nan.
And it was a family based in the Second World War, First World War or something. So he was in that initially. And then, God, look at this. Mad Max, Gallipoli, which is just a fantastic film. Everyone needs to watch. And then, where do you go after that? There's hundreds. I've picked out Maverick for obvious links with this one. I love Maverick, and we've mentioned it before. Braveheart is just such a great film. It's one of the best. And the one slightly left field one is Chicken Run.
Yeah, he's the voice in Chicken Run, isn't he?
Yeah, I love Chicken Run.
I've got a couple that he directed, which I don't think you've seen. You haven't seen Hacksaw Ridge, have you, with Andrew Garfield?
No, I still haven't seen that.
We mentioned that in a previous podcast. Apocalypto, have you seen that?
No.
That's an amazing film. He's such a good director. But as an actor, I picked out a couple random ones you mightn't have watched. Tequila Sunrise.
Did see that on the list, yeah.
Kurt Russell, Michelle Pfeiffer from 88. One is a good one to watch with Robert Downey Jr., Air America.
Oh, God, yeah.
And they mention Air America in Lethal Weapon. The Air America film comes out later, but there's a conversation with him and Joshua, and they mention about Air America. And I was sitting there thinking, is that intentional? I was like, oh, no, it's a later film. Maverick, you mentioned Payback.
Payback, yeah.
That's a proper
cool
18
film.
movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
And another one, because again, I don't think you've seen it because it's slightly horrorish, Signs.
No.
The M. Night Shyamalan one with
No, I haven't seen any. I haven't really seen any.
Absolutely need to watch that.
The only thing I did, just because it links in with one of our previous episodes in Boxset 2, is I did know this when we did The Untouchables, but he turned down a role in The Untouchables to do Lethal Weapon.
The Elliot Ness role? Or...
I don't know what the role was, but it just said he turned down the
I
role.
wonder if it was more the Andy Garcia.
That's what I
maybe.
was thinking. I think that, and I'm like, what a choice. He's absolutely perfect.
Unless it was the Kevin Costner role.
Don't know.
Then he's made the right choice, because I think having the chance to be with...
But even then, I think he right, because Lethal Weapon just made his career, didn't it? And then who else have we got in? Obviously, we got Murtaugh, played by Danny Glover. And I've got to be honest, there was not a lot of stuff. He's done quite a lot of films in the last 15, 20 years, and I haven't really seen any of them. So picked out a little bit earlier stuff. The most recent is Ears and Dreamgirls, which I do love. I have a bit of soft spot for Dreamgirls. He's also in the Royal Tenenbaums as well. Yeah. I forgot he was in that. But I think if you're going to go back for something, Lonesome Dove, the Western... Robert Duvall's in that as well, I think. Yeah. Oh, that's such a good... It's a mini-series as well, isn't it? I think it is, yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's fantastic. He's in The Colour Purple, is it, as well?
That's what I've got, yeah. It's funny when you said his name, though, I immediately smiled.
Yeah.
I don't know why, there's just something about him that's like so like lovable, isn't he? I've got Colour Purple, Predator 2.
Yes.
From 1990. Another film which I thought was really good, and I haven't seen for a long time, but Switchback, which he did with Dennis Quaid in 97. That's worth visiting. He was in an episode of My Name is Earl, and he's brilliant in that. And the last Jumanji movie, he plays Danny DeVito's business partner when they get sucked into the game.
Didn't know.
Yeah, he's amazing in that.
We've also got Gary Busey. He's one of them like actors, you know his name, but he's done a couple of... He did, like, films I picked out was Point Break.
Yeah.
And Under Siege. But the rest of us, it's very hit and miss. But he's been around, hasn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Well, he was nominated for an Oscar in 78 for the Buddy Holly story. That's kind of what made him. But you're right, when you look through, he's never the main one, is he? A little link to Danny Glover, he was in Predator 2.
Yeah.
Obviously Point Break with Keanu Reeves, who was in The Matrix.
Never seen it.
Jesus Christ. I loved him in The Firm with Tom Cruise.
I forgot. Yeah, he's in that.
He's in that. Yeah. But what I'd recommend you go and watch, he's in Impractical Jokers.
Really?
Oh my God.
See, you love that, don't you? I've never really watched it.
I'm a huge Impractical Jokers fan. I could just watch it for like 10 hours a day, all day. And I've watched like multiple episodes multiple times. Just go on YouTube and just watch some of the clips, because he's totally off the rails. They obviously think it's a great idea to have him on, but you cannot control Gary Busey.
But is he naturally a bit off the rails?
He's nuts.
He's
nuts. He's nuts. I think as well, isn't the recent allegations and stuff, which we maybe won't go into, because I generally don't know the details, but just watch the clips of him on that show. Okay,
no worries, I'll pick that up. Who else have we got? We've also got Mitchell Ryan, who is in Grosse Point Blank, if you remember.
That was the link I was mentioning before. That's the link to a previous podcast episode.
And he was also in Liar Liar as well, which I think is a great film. Who else have got? Have you got anything? Sorry?
No, I just picked out them main four, but the Grosse Point Blank link was the one that I was thinking, how can we link the podcast? Because the other three don't really fall into anything, do they?
We've also got Darlene Love, who plays Murtaugh's wife in it. Now, she hasn't really done much acting, apart from all Lethal Weapon films, but of course she's famous because she is the lead singer from the Phil Spector band The Blossoms. But she's even more infamous. She was brought in to lead vocals on what's the big song, He's a Rebel by the Crystals. So basically Phil Spector was being a bit of an arsehole to the Crystals because he wanted a new contract, so he brought her in and recorded her vocals and then released the song in their name, just to say, I'm the boss around it. Right. So she got a #1 record, but was never credited for it.
Oh, which really? I think, yeah. The Phil Spector documentary, I think you can watch it on Sky. That's really interesting.
Oh, he's batshit crazy.
Yeah,
he is like
it's watchable. Definitely.
Yeah. The only other one I've got in here is Tracy Wolf, who played the daughter, Rianne. She seemed to do the Lethal Weapon films, and then there's nothing until literally a couple of years ago, and she's re-emerged. She's done Blue Bloods and one of the other big crime like
an NCIS type. Not...
But she's in a film called She Said, which is very recently. It's all around a couple of women involved in like I think it's at a newspaper or a magazine. It's very recent. Apparently, it's really highly rated. Right. So it's definitely on my list to dig up. But I just found it really strange because looking at bibliography, apart from the Lethal Weapon films, there's like nothing for 20 like since
just
until
back.
2019 or something, and she suddenly re-emerged and she's done a few bits since then. It'll be really interesting to find out why. And obviously we'll come back to the director Richard Donner, who's already been featured as director of Superman, and obviously he's also done The Goonies and The Omen, and also if you remember The Omen starred Frida Dowie, who was Nikki's mum in Our Friends in the North.
Yes, yeah, you mentioned that.
Which was a bit of a random one.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even pulled that one out. Did you notice as well, or did you read, sorry, that Leonard Nimoy was offered the chance as well?
To direct, yeah.
Yeah.
But didn't he go and do Three Men and a Baby instead?
I can't remember. Depending on what I read two different things. One was that he'd just done Three Men and a Baby and was tied into another movie, and one was that he was in the middle of Three Men and a Baby. But Leonard Nimoy would have been a strange choice for this. I don't think it'd been as R-rated and probably as violent as it is.
Definitely, yeah.
So we've been through kind of who's in it, and there's some obviously great actors. There's two obviously main characters as well.
Yeah.
So what's your favourite performance, your favourite character? What have you gone with?
Do you know what? I'm going to cheat on this one. I don't think you can split Riggs and Murtaugh.
Are you doing them as a pair?
Yeah, I just...
Big cheat.
I know, and do you know what? We've done this...
Boo. Boo.
I just can't. I've literally...
It's tough.
I can't split them because I think they both make it. Lethal Weapon is purely just them two.
You can't have one without the other, can you?
No, so I'm pulling that card on that one, and I'm probably not allowed to use that card again.
Okay, well, I'm not going to pull the card. I'll tell you who's my favourite. And this is probably going to come back to the age thing. Mine is Roger Murtaugh, like, because I think you tend to sway towards characters that you most like, and obviously being married, having kids, just feeling old. I think, obviously, he's a brilliant policeman. I do think, though, and this is probably where you're going to disagree, I do think you could still do the movie with just one of them.
Ooh.
I do think you could still just have...
Well, they've got...
I mean, I think I'm saying it... What I mean by that, sorry, is as a pair, it absolutely works and the film's brilliant. But I think there's still a film to be made if it was just Riggs chasing down the bad guys, and if it was just the Murtaugh, because even though they're so different, I think you could still have made... If, say, Mel Gibson dropped out, and he went, we're still going to make this movie, but it's just about Danny Glover, his family, and I still think you can do it. Well, but the magic comes when they're together.
Yeah, without doubt. Number 5 is in production, isn't it?
Richard Donner's passed away, so I don't know.
So apparently it's still in that
yeah. I think Mel's going to direct, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's the rumour.
Yeah. So I don't know where they go with, because...
He's 77 now, is he?
Yeah. So
Danny Glover.
I don't know what...
I just think I relate more now. I think if you'd have asked me 20 years ago, I'd have said Riggs, because Riggs...
This is exactly the dilemma I had when I was trying to split, because there's no point really picking another character in Lethal Weapon, because it's...
Yeah. I can tell you who I want to be, and I can tell you who I am.
Yes. I think of the last few years I've became Murtaugh, but I wish it was still Riggs.
Because the thing is, if they make 5... Riggs is going to be the Murtaugh, because he had the baby, didn't we, Rennie Russo in 4, isn't it, at the end? So you're going to come back to it where they're both are an age where probably Murtaugh's going to be a granddad, isn't he?
They'll both be retired. They must be both... That's got to be the story. They get pulled back into a case that, a lost case or something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be something.
Because they're both going to be 60s and 70s. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how it works.
The way they'll do it is probably a little bit like with Die Hard 3, where it was Hans Gruber's brother, wasn't it? It's going to be like Mr. Joshua's grandson or something. It's going to be...
But speaking of the age thing, it's all like we were spoken about it. He was like, Roger Murtaugh was meant to be 50.
Yeah.
But Danny Glover was only 40. You know what I mean? And there's that one comment when he's in the office early on, because it's his birthday, and one of his work colleagues goes, "Oh, you look younger for your age." Have you got on
after he shaves the beard off.
Yeah, and you know they put that in there on purpose because they're just having a little joke as well.
But essentially what you're saying is we are older than
yes,
Danny Glover was when he made that movie.
Yeah, I know.
Should we move on?
Yeah.
Have you got a favourite scene or moment within the whole film?
A couple of honourables. I think you've got to mention the rooftop scene because that's where you really get to know that Riggs is literally batshit crazy as well. He is crazy, and it's a great scene. And I just love because the surprise when he just jumps is still slightly shocking. And do you know what I mean? I know there's the big airbag at the bottom, but you didn't know that while you're watching. So it's still great. I just think the whole way the character dealt with that situation was boss. It was super cool, and it was just like, yeah, it was cool. The other one is the fight at the end, which I'd completely forgotten about until I watched it again the other night.
You forgot the fight?
Yeah, and it's like, it's bonkers.
It goes on for ages.
Oh my God, and it's like, and I was reading a little bit like Richard Donner, he brought in about 3 or 4 different like discipline experts, like there was Brazilian jiu-jitsu, someone else, and they all had an input into like, because it just kept going and going and going, and it's just like,
because wasn't it going to be longer? It was going to be like up to like 4 minutes something, because I think, have you ever seen They Live?
No.
Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Oh, I know of it, but I've never.
There's a fight scene in that just goes on, and they
is it a bit like the Family Guy joke with Peter and the chicken at that fight? It just goes on forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, it's amazing, that fight scene.
But my favourite scene, and it's so subtle you can blink and you miss it, is the night where Murtaugh invites him back for dinner, and they have the little chat on the boat, and he goes home, and then it cuts to, I think Murtaugh starts watching the video, and then it cuts to where Riggs comes and wakes him up in a coffee in the morning. If you notice Riggs, he's washed, he's cleanly presented, his hair is all brushed, and to me it just signified that Murtaugh reaching out to him.
Right, I never got onto that.
Go back, because it's so obvious, because when you see him wake up and he's wearing clean clothes, he's got the jacket on, his hair's all brushed, and it's just like, I think it's subtle, but it's definitely there, and I just think it was a really good way of just saying he responded, because obviously the backstory is his wife died, and he's going through, you know, a bit cliche, heavily drinking, smoking, wants to like commit suicide and all that. Is he crazy? Is he not crazy? But I think that connection he had the night before cemented the friendship, and you see he turns up next day, he's got jeans on and his shirt's all tidy.
I'm going to have to go back and watch now.
Yeah, it's really...
Because in 1, all we know is she died in the car crash. Yeah. It's not until 2 we find out a bit more. I've gone with 2. I just wrote down 2, but 1 was the rooftop jump. But the only reason I picked the rooftop jump... Can't say that fast. Not so much because it's a great scene, because it is, but also that was always the main part of the trailer and the clips on TV, and that's what I always remember as to why I wanted to see the film, even though we were only like young. But I just remember that clip of, you want to jump, let's jump. Yeah. And obviously in the trailer you just see them jump, you don't see anymore. Yeah. And I was always like everyone wants to see this film. The other one I picked was just a dead quick one, which is when Murtaugh first sees Riggs in the police station. He's watching him. Yeah. And Riggs pulls the gun out, and Murtaugh charges him, and he's shouting, gun, and Riggs is just looking around going like, where? and he ends up flipping Murtaugh, and that's the first time. I love that scene. Music then.
Okay, and again, until I watched again the other night, Eric Clapton does all the original soundtrack music to it, with all the little musical bits on, because it's all like that 80s bluesy.
So is he on the first one? Is he?
Yeah. So Eric Clapton's all the music to it, and I love it, that song at the end, because you text me about this.
It's awful.
Well, this is why it should be awful. So it's a song called Lethal Weapon by a band I've never heard of called Honeymoon Suite, but I've done a little bit of digging on Spotify, and they are your absolute cliche American rock band, and the song is so bad, it's good, and it's perfect. It's it just I don't know if it was written specifically for it.
It has to be. I think they'd gone to that band and said, we're making a film called Lethal Weapon. Get Lethal Weapon in the lyrics.
Oh, it's shockingly bad, but oh my God, I loved it.
It mustn't have been released as a single, though, because I don't remember it. Unless it was and it just flopped, because I do think it's all...
It just...
It fits with the film, but I've never... Do you remember it like at all?
No, because you said make sure you watch the credits, because you watched it the night before me, and I was thinking, is there a post-credits scene? I don't remember. And then as soon as that song came on, I was thinking, is that what he means? But it made me giggle, the song.
Isn't it something like You Turn Me Into a Lethal Weapon?
Yes, it's awful. But it's the 80s. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it was all awful.
Did you get into some of the little kind of music cues with straight from Die Hard as well?
No.
Well, I mean, sorry, I used in Die Hard. There's little pieces of sound and stuff, like little jingle bits that you go, when you rewatch Die Hard again, you'll go, that's in.
Okay.
There's definitely little cues from it.
We mentioned before, Joel Silver produced this and produced Die Hard. They were pretty much right after each other as well, weren't they? And the fact that they would sort of set around, I think all the cast were sort of up for each other movies as well when you were getting cast.
Yeah, because were you going to mention this, that Bruce Willis was nearly in Die Hard? And
it was well mentioned now, but they were all they were trying to work out who was who, but I think as soon as they got Glover and Mel Gibson together, I think that was pretty locked on. But apparently they were both considered for roles in Die Hard.
In an alternative universe, Mel Gibson is John McClane, and Bruce is Riggs. It's weird, that,
but I also, incidentally, as I was reading that, Harrison Ford was also up for what's his name in Die Hard, which I was like...
Well, so was Clint Eastwood, and I know we're going off the topic here because they're Die Hard, but Frank Sinatra.
That boom.
Yeah, mad though, isn't it?
I know.
We're going to have to do Die Hard one day, I think.
Definitely.
We love this film, but what could you have done to make it better?
All right, then. I've got a couple...
What would you change?
What would I change? Got a couple of points on this. Is the character, Gary Busey's character, the Joshua, and the General, played by Mitchell Ryan, felt like it didn't really need both of them. They both had quite a similar backstory. They were... Do you know what I mean? I think they were both good actors. They were both half interesting characters. I thought you could have just made it just having one as a really developed bad guy better. It could have been either one of them as well. Do you know what I mean?
Go on, sorry.
I'd slightly lean towards Gary Busey because he is just like a bit crazy, but it just seemed like they were interchangeable. So I thought, why couldn't you just have developed the one character to be the main baddie?
No, I agree with that. And what I don't like in films is where the bad guy has a bad guy boss.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, we want Mr. Joshua should have been the one that we're scared of. Should have been the main bad guy. That's a really good shout, because like, I hate it when they get to the end of a movie or something, they'll go something like, well, wait until you meet my boss. And it's like, but I thought you were the scary one.
Yeah.
Like, so now we've got to do that. The only things I would have done slightly different is I'd have loved more of that conversation between Riggs and Mr. Joshua, because Gary Busey's so good in it. When they're walking in the desert after he's captured them. Yeah. Because I just think they were talking about like the military experience, and I think maybe that would have led more to Riggs wanting to that fight. It would have added even more to that fight, because you only really get we know obviously Mr. Joshua shoots him and there's a few bits, but I just think that conversation could have been dragged out. I mean, minor issue, and it's not just Lethal Weapon, it's the additional dialogue recording, which is called ADR. Yeah. I think in this, it can sound too clear. Like, it's so obvious that some of the lines are recorded in the studio. Does that make sense? Yeah, because it's just easier and cheaper to make sometimes. Yeah, because obviously if you're filming on the side of a highway, which they are in one of the scenes, you've got all that noise from, the camera crew and everything. So I understand why they did it. But I think in more modern day films, the background noise and the music's mixed in a lot better. Yeah, definitely. Whereas there's times where they're talking and it's like, it's so obvious that is not, I'm sure not them doing it. Isn't that what a Foley artist does? I'm sure the Foley artist is the person that sort of records, that mixes it, the soundscape of when you go and when you record the voices afterwards, it still has the natural background. I'm sure it's just... It takes me out of some scenes. Yeah, I know what you're saying. When it's too clear. And obviously, that was for the time, wasn't it? That was how
Yeah.
they did it, and I do think it's a lot better now. But that's my one thing. If you could go back and just mix the audio and sound a little bit more.
One other little thing I had down is it stood out more rewatching it, but the Rian Murtaugh character, I think if it was remade now, she would have just been a little bit more sassy and a bit less docile. You know, when she was, if you watch it now, she'd almost be in a situation, if it was remade now, though, she'd probably save her dad. But in him, she was just useless. Do you know what I mean? And
She just gets out the car and starts screaming. Doesn't
yeah.
she?
I
suppose really that's probably what a normal teenager would have done in that
but
situation. But I know what you mean.
I just think watching now, she wouldn't be like that. I think the character could have been a little bit more. I think it was
more like a dad, just a bit more braver. Do you mean?
Yeah, I definitely think. I think there was. Yeah, so I'd change that bit as well.
So the movie then, silly question, but did it make an impact? What impression did it have when it came out? And since
it was a blockbuster. It was an absolute franchise blockbuster.
A blockbuster for that time.
Oh, definitely. So 120 million worldwide, which I think back in the day, that we've always said anything over 100 million is like boom. That's you are in the money.
Whereas now it costs 100 million to make a movie.
God, it makes
at least
100 million just to promote a movie these days. Impact as well. You can't get away from the fact that this catapulted Mel Gibson into. He was now a bona fide movie star after this. You know, he'd done some great stuff before, but he was a Hollywood star after this. So impact-wise, goes hand in hand. But the bit I really want to talk about is just how the buddy cop genre sort of just evolved a little bit, I think, as well. I think the 80s... It's a defining genre of the 80s, isn't it? Buddy cop movies. But buddy movies had been around since the beginning of movies. But I think the 80s, they really came into their own because it's all mixed in with these themes of masculinity and heroism. And I think today, if we look at it in today's eyes, possibly a little bit toxic. But it's almost like, you know, when you watch the old movies on Disney Channel and it goes, you outdated cultural references. Yeah. You watch 80s movies now, and it's almost, you should have that disclaimer, because they make jokes about his wife's cooking and stuff like that. And Darlene Love, his wife, she is a really terrible character in it.
Yeah, and I don't think you get like the topless scene at the opening of the movie now, really.
No,
it's just it's gratuitous.
And the
nudity,
daughter, when
you
bring her out when she's been kidnapped, and all of a sudden she's in a like little
90 type thing.
Yeah, and it was just a bit weird. And there's a few of that, but that's not to take away that, you know, they're still culturally relevant, even though they're now irrelevant, if that makes sense, because it's how we got to where we are now. Because I was reading about how the buddy cop movie then changed on the back of this. Once you got to the 90s and noughties, the lead, because they're generally always men in a lot of the buddy cop movies, they then became just a little bit more sensitive and a little bit more open to the emotions. And it was just a really good article. I read like the evolution of the buddy cop movie, but I just love a buddy cop movie. It's just like, they just really, really, really do it for me. And also touches in a little bit. Remember when we did the Boxset special, all the films I tend to pick tend to be around groups of friends and blah, blah, blah. It's almost sort of...
It links in with that relationship, yeah.
And also, I think what's quite striking about it is all that was done before, the biracial pairings, I think is quite something we should sort of talk about as well, because we had it with the Eddie Murphy movies early in the decade, but with this one it's slightly flipped, because Murtaugh, the Murtaughs are incredibly middle class, and it was a completely different perspective of an African American family. So it's a really quite interesting take, because there was, you know, back in the 80s on really terrible cliche like cop TV shows, if there was a guest detective coming in and he was black, he was always going to end up dead. Do you know what I mean? It was still like, there's a famous American sketch show, and they're setting up as like this cop's meeting his new partner for the day, and he's black and the other one walks in and he's black, and you both look at each other and go, oh shit, because it's like, which one's going to die?
Right.
So like, I don't think that should be overlooked as well. And I was reading about when Shane Black wrote it, he didn't have a race in mind, it was just naturally cast. And I love that. I think it's just natural, the thing, but something is just worth pointing out.
Okay, so It's that time then. The new feature.
Ooh.
Kenny, get in here. Right, we need you to dim the lights. Stop. Okay.
Or at least close the blinds.
Right, that'll do. So, Liam, this is your quick fire round. Okay, you've only got a couple of seconds to answer each question. 70s, 80s or 90s, 2000 action movies?
90s, 2000.
Buddy cop movie or lone hero movie?
Buddy cop.
Name your favourite bad guy.
Alan Rickman's Sheriff Nottingham in Prince of Thieves.
Oh, nice choice. Recast this with 2 British actors.
Oh. Okay. Martin Freeman just popped straight into my brain. As Murtaugh.
Oh, as Murtaugh.
Yeah.
The family man.
Yeah. Riggs would be difficult. I'm going to go because we've already mentioned Idris Elba would be quite interesting because I know he's done, like, Luther is quite reserved. Yeah. I'd like to see him as a bit of a nutter.
Can't believe he didn't say he was. Are you too old for this shit?
No.
Is it true that they fuck you at the drive-thru?
No.
It's from Lethal Weapon 2 with Joe Pesci.
I can't remember. Oh, I just killed the quick fire round off. I can't. Do you know what? I literally, and I think this happens when it's been such a while, is I'm really, when I watched Lethal Weapon the other night, is I found it hard to remember what was Lethal Weapon 1 and 2 and 3. 4 I don't really remember at all.
4 was great with Jet Li. It's definitely
I thought you and me went to see 4 in the pictures.
Yeah, absolutely.
We definitely went to see that. But it's that franchise, and I think now I need to go back and watch 2, 3, 4 now as well. Get ready for 5.
Yeah. Okay, so how can the listener watch Lethal Weapon?
I had to rent it. You can rent or buy from the usual, so you can do like Prime, Google, Apple, but it's not available on Netflix or Prime.
If you want to watch it on DVD, you can lend it from me.
Watching DVD.
Tweet us, we'll lend you it.
I'm pretty sure I went to school with someone who had this on VHS from Cyprus. If you remember, do you remember?
Like a dodgy pirated copy, yeah.
Yeah.
It was probably just recorded from a proper video, wasn't it?
And it was camcorded in a cinema job.
Oh, was it?
I don't know. But do you remember?
Yeah.
I remember actually, we was mentioning it before, I remember actually seeing the first Ninja Turtles movie that was massive in the late 80s. I actually saw a copy of that, and it was literally a camcorder in the cinema.
There's 2 I in particularly remember. I remember Phantom Menace being available before we got, because it was out in America. Way before with it came out at the same time as The Matrix.
Never seen it.
Jesus Christ. But there was obviously a dodgy copy of that. I was like, I am not watching that. I'm going to the cinema. And the other one, do you remember the story about the copy of E.T.?
Yes.
On Merseyside?
Yes.
There was a VHS copy of E.T., but it cuts off after he dies, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's an absolute myth in Liverpool now, that story.
I don't know if it's true or not.
I just think it's such a good story that's just been kept alive.
The reason I think it's true is because if people are using camcorders in the cinema, the battery life and the tapes were only...
Possibly, yeah.
The tapes are only about 90 minutes. So I think that is... I don't remember watching it, but I think it's absolutely a true story.
I hope it is. It's one of them
nice
stories.
Myth
I want it to be true, yeah.
If you like Lethal Weapon, then what else would you like? I'll go first. I've picked 2 categories. I've gone movies where a main character was meant to die.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I picked that is because in Lethal Weapon 2, Riggs was meant to be killed. Obviously, they decided not to, and thankfully we got Lethal Weapon 3 and 4.
Because that's the point Shane Black walked off. He sort of was less involved, because he wrote the first one. He developed the second one, but he disagreed with the studio, and he went, "Nah, I'm out," because he wanted them. He didn't want to make any more. Right. But even though he's come back to write number 5.
First Blood.
Oh,
Stallone was meant to die at the end of that. They were meant to kill him when he's in the police station, but obviously went against it. Breaking Bad. Jesse was meant to die.
Of course he was, yeah.
Yeah, Jesse was meant to be killed. I think it was in a car crash or something, but he was meant to die in the first season. Obviously, they realised we've got magic here.
Yeah.
Kept him alive. I don't think you've watched Barry yet, have you? With Bill Hader. So, NoHo Hank was meant to die in the first episode. He's played by Anthony Carrigan, and he's probably one of the best TV characters ever. If they'd have done that, they'd have regretted it so much. Dr. Ian Malcolm dies in the novel Jurassic Park, but obviously not in the movie, because then he goes on to be like the lead in the second one. And the one I've got is Agent Coulson in Avengers. That was meant to be permanent when he dies, but obviously he comes back for like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff. So they're all films where one of the main characters was meant to die. And then I've just gone for movies based around Christmas, but aren't particularly classed as Christmas movies, except for Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
So Die Hard's not on your list?
Die Hard's on my list just to bring up, because it's a Christmas movie.
And it's Die Hard.
I know Bruce has denied it. Don't care. It's a Christmas movie.
I'd completely forgot that Lethal Weapon was based around Christmas as well.
It's a Shane Black thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, set at Christmas. Iron Man 3, which he directed as well, that's set at Christmas. It's obviously not classed as a Christmas movie. Batman Returns is a Christmas, which I think a lot of people forget because of the massive Christmas tree, and then the Joker Penguin pops out of a Christmas presents and stuff.
Yeah.
Trading Places.
Yes.
Perfect. All around Christmas. One of our previous podcast episodes, LA Confidential, because you get bloody Christmas when the police beat up the prisoners. And then one that isn't, again, not really talked about as a Christmas movie, but filmed around Christmas, Gremlins.
I need to watch. It's been a while since I watched Gremlins.
Yeah,
I don't think I really watched it. I don't think I really liked it as a kid. So that's to be.
You just don't like anything scary,
no,
do you?
I don't. No,
it's not that scary. But that's my two categories. What have you gone with?
Well, I went with first category was Shane Black, just because he literally defied 80s, 90s action movies, and at one point for quite a few times he was the highest paid actor for a couple of films he wrote in Hollywood, and like I said, he was only 22 when he submitted this, and I think that's just it's just a phenomenal piece of writing. And a little known fact, he's the first victim of the Predator in the original Predator movie,
which we may be talking about soon,
maybe,
possibly.
Maybe. But he also wrote Last Boy Scout, Last Action Hero, which doesn't. It's a great film. It just didn't land at the time, if you remember. Because
Jurassic Park came out at the same time as well.
And it was dubbed as being it was going to be a blockbuster, but you go back and it's a really good film because it really, Shane Black absolutely takes apart the genre of the genre that he helped create, if that makes sense. It's really clever. It just didn't land at the time, did it? You know what I mean? I don't think the audience were prepared for it because we weren't ready for that sort of
piss take almost, isn't it?
It's that meta, isn't it? That meta humour. I don't think we were prepared or ready for it at the time.
Not from what we were used to from Arnie as well.
Yeah, I think it was. So Last Action Hero was always, and obviously Long Kiss Goodbye he also wrote as well. And then he sort of had a little break from Hollywood. I think he carried on writing, but it was more, I don't know if it was novels or something, but he sort of got back in the game a few years later, but he wrote and directed. And these are great films. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which you just mentioned, Iron Man 3, which you just mentioned, and The Nice Guys. Like 3 absolute cracking films that he wrote and directed. So I'm like, hands down, Shane Black, he's a proper Hollywood superstar as far as I'm concerned.
And in The Nice Guys is Russell Crowe, who is
Brett Goldstein's dad
in the MCU.
This is a really tedious link to Superbad. Super Bob, sorry.
Last week's episode.
We were desperately trying to wedge in a link from Super Bob. That was your one. It was actually quite good. So basically, if you're not aware, in the last 4 film, which Russell Crowe plays Zeus, the post-credit scene is Brett Goldstein playing Hercules. So that was the best link we could get to Super Bob from last week. The other category I got, and I had to, buddy cop movie, like just buddy cop
you had
movies.
to.
I had to go buddy cop, and I love buddy cop movies. Okay, you'll see why the 80s was the buddy cop movie decade. I'm just going to reel a few of these off. 48 Hours, Beverly Hills Cop, they were both franchises. Turner and Hooch, K9.
Excellent.
Stakeout.
I only watched them recently, you know.
Another Stakeout.
Yeah.
And slightly off buddy cop movies with the FX, with the two Brians. Brian Dennehy.
Yeah, great movies.
And I just think they're brilliant. And then if you want to sort of go on a little bit, a couple of years later, next decade, I picked out Rush Hour and Bad Boys. Bad Boys is just... And that's what I was saying before, that evolution of the buddy cop movie, where by the time we got to Bad Boys, the two main characters were just a little bit more in touch with their emotions and stuff, and it's still funny.
You don't get Rush Hour and Bad Boys without Lethal Weapon, do you?
No, without doubt. And then if you want to bring it round the other way, a little bit more modern, The Heat, which we mentioned before, Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock, I think is a fantastic buddy cop movie. Doesn't get the credit it deserves. Hot Fuzz.
Oh, excellent choice. Yeah.
And just because it's got one of the funniest moments in a film, Zootopia, when the bit where they go into the driving licence office and the sloth moves dead slowly and he tells them the joke. Oh my God, I crack up every time. So Zootopia. But again, it does play on all them cliches. So that's a kids animated film, but if you go back and watch that, it actually hits all those cliches in a different way of Lethal Weapon.
No, it's an excellent choice. All excellent choices. That then was our 80s theme week. Liam went with Lethal Weapon, and you should watch it if you can.
This was a Watch It If You Can production, executive produced by Kenny, our Val's lad, on Work Experience.
Don't forget to follow, rate and share from wherever you get your podcasts.